All right, thank you for staying with us on Citizen Weekend. We discuss East Africa. Is it repression season? I am joined from Dar es Salaam by Tito Magoti, an international human rights lawyer. We are joined by another human rights lawyer, this time from Kampala, and his name is Kato Tumusime. I hope I didn't butcher it too much, Kato. But Kato, I will start with you. You have been involved in the case that concerns two missing Kenyan activists who went missing in Uganda on the campaign trail with Bobi Wine. I'm talking about Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyoo. What is the latest on where they are? Has the government communicated on whether they're in military custody?
Well, thank you so much for hosting me tonight. And to start on that very point is that after filing and serving the respondents in that case of habeas corpus, including the Attorney General of the Republic of Uganda, the Inspector General of Police, the Head of Military Intelligence, and the Chief of Defense Forces, we have not received any reply as of to date. The matter was fixed and scheduled for hearing on the 14th of this month at 8 a.m. in Kampala, Uganda, but it is shocking that by the time we started the weekend, we had not received any reply from the respondents. And it has been a habit for all the habeas corpus applications that I've been able to handle in Uganda, and the courts have also given the respondents some more extra time to be able to file their affidavits in reply so that we can proceed with the hearing. So as of to date, the matter was filed for habeas corpus. We have not received any response officially from the government representatives about the whereabouts of Oyoo and Bob, and therefore we wait to meet them in court on 14th. Before the judge, and that's when maybe they can be able to make something that is formal in that kind of communication so that we can well know the whereabouts. The information that is coming from some of the people that last saw them clearly indicate that the two individuals, the Kenyans who are East Africans, are detained in the military intelligence facility, which is in Mbuya, Kampala, but we wait to hear from the respondents in that application to be able to formalize and tell us the whereabouts of those two individuals and what role they are being held and the legality of their detention. Yes.
All right. I'll come back to you, Kato, on the legislation that was signed into law, I believe, in June in Uganda, where the military can try civilians and whether that could be applied in this case. But I'll come to you now, Tito. Just after we saw Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyoo abducted by armed, uniformed men, according to witness accounts, we've heard that the family of Humphrey Pole Pole in Tanzania has alleged that he too has been abducted. What is the latest on that?
Yes, thanks for having us, Olive. As my colleague Kato said, I think this is a continuity of what the region has been experiencing across all jurisdictional bounds of East Africa, where the regimes are now considering repressive measures as the only selling card for them to remain in power. Humphrey's abduction is linked to his criticism of the regime. Equally, several other incidents of abductions that have happened in Tanzania, with the nature of domestic, like the domestic repression, they also link to several other abductions that have happened in the region that has an outlook of transnational. So it is a continuity of what our regimes think that can work for them. Humphrey hasn't been found as of now, and the government denied, in fact, the police denied to have been involved in the incident. But the public believes that the law enforcement authorities involved, because Humphrey was so critical of the regime. He resigned as an ambassador, and he was calling for reforms ahead of the election.
All right, and I'll come to you now, Kato, on the question of military detainment, because it's coming up to a year, I believe, since Kizza Besigye was abducted, quote-unquote abducted, in Kenya and then transferred to military custody in Uganda. What is the deal, to speak colloquially, with this new legislation that allows the military to try civilians in certain instances. You know, is this an attempt to quiet dissidents, in your view?
Well, it might also be used as one of the ways and the roles that they can use against these comrades that were kidnapped and abducted and held in Communicado now since the 1st of October. But to say that it is now a continued habit now, or even a disease, you may call it, that we still have both local abductions and kidnaps and international abductions, like you said, the famous case of the Dr. Kano Kiza Besigye. Even when the Supreme Court of Uganda nullified the different sections of the UPDF Act that allowed, that illegally made the members of the military try the civilians in their general court-martial, even when they had no jurisdiction, through parliament, the leadership and the state here, the president, I may say, had to play games with the parliament so that they could amend that act. Even when the decision of the Supreme Court was clear on what should be included in the advisory opinion, some of the things that were nullified were still forced back into the new amended law, including the trial of civilians and the formation or composition of the general court-martial. But to say Bob and Oyoo are not the only people that are missing. For example, we have had a famous case of Sam Mugumya, who was kidnapped and arrested from the western part of Uganda now since 26th of August. We still haven't found him, even when sources clearly say that the man is being held in that detention. The regime in Uganda is capable of using all kinds and means to crush the dissent from the people that they believe don't support them, from the people that believe are opposite or they oppose whatever they try to bring into force. They can use any kind of law. We are at the state in Uganda where nobody wants to care on whether what they are doing is legal or illegal. They will just drag you into court like they are doing to Dr. Kiza Besigye. You may well know, if you have followed what has been transpiring in the courts of law, that the case was indicted in a different division of the High Court, but ended up in a different division of the High Court. This is what we have been challenging on a daily basis. But that calls to the either incompetence or I should say what they want to believe and do to show the people that they have the power and they're in charge, to make sure that they can sustain their more 5 years, which might be a hard and tussle, but they are capable of doing whatever is going to happen. The UPDF amended act can be used now on anyone, including me and you, if they believe that you have engaged in anything related to military, including on appearing on a TV like this for an interview. So it is very possible that they might want to use that one against the two individuals and so many other individuals, especially as we continue to do the campaigns for the presidential elections and other local positions. But we are faced in a tough condition as East African countries, and I believe this is the right time to speak about all these kind of injustices, and we should say that the freedom of opinion, the freedom of dissent should be respected and upheld in all these countries.
All right. There's something you've raised there that I'd like Tito to weigh in on, because as much as we have elections in Uganda in January, we also have elections much sooner, right around the corner in Tanzania, October 29th. How much, in your view, are these abductions? Because remember the Agatha Tuhaire and Boniface Mwangi case. We also saw Tundu Lissu has been detained on treason charges. In fact, I was reading that the second most popular opposition party leader, Luhaga Mpina, the candidate for the second biggest opposition party, ACT Wazalendo, has also been disqualified from running. Tito, how much of these events do you link to elections?
So plenty has happened in Tanzania, especially negative efforts that are made to make sure that President Suluhu is running without opposition. ACT Wazalendo candidate has been disqualified. The leader of the leading opposition party is in prison. the Chadema party and the entire leadership under political lockdown. Civil society, the media, is undergoing a crackdown on their legitimate work. There's been an ongoing mass abductions and arrest of dissenting voices, especially the young people who show up on social media, to try to rally against this electoral malpractice. So you would see that we are in a country with a political system that was designed to fail or to babysit the incumbent. And this is why all institutions of justice are not working in anyone's favor except the ruling party CCM. So to call the Tanzania electoral malpractice as an election, I think it's a little bit out of touch. We are going to have another validation exercise, if I put it that way. I think it's a similar pattern that is going to happen in Uganda, where President Museveni is not even asking for votes. He has an assurance of further term in office. And in our case in Tanzania now, you can see that if there's no fairness, if there's no openness, if there's no competition, and if there's no alternative voices in the electoral exercise, you would find a case where you are going to have another failure of institutions like parliament. Since 2020, we have had no parliament in Tanzania because it was an extended party caucus with more than 99 ruling party legislators. So we are likely having a similar case in the next 5 years, if at all the election is going to happen, because we have a few days towards that day, and plenty can happen in a day. And also we are going to have another critical disengagement of citizens in the governance processes, because if you don't have representative, if you are not represented, it means that you're also bound to fail because your voices are cut off completely. So we are experiencing a situation that I think, in my opinion, there's a need for a total overhaul on how we conduct ourselves in these democratic and governance architecture spaces. There's all reasons to make sure that citizens are deliberately participating in the processes and that they have faith that their votes will count. And this can only be done when you have an active citizenry, which is why we're also advising towards having a society that can say no to things. Whether we will reach to a point where we can say no tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, it remains to be seen. But what is happening in Tanzania, in Uganda, it's going to happen. In Kenya, 2027, it's also hopeful that maybe something can be done. But I think the region needs a new dawn in a way that brings back the citizens in the project of building their nations. All
right. Lastly, Kato, I have less than a minute. If Nicholas Oyoo and Bob Njagi are indeed in military or intelligence custody in Uganda, does that suspend their constitutional rights? Because, as I understand it, the Ugandan constitution requires people to be presented in court in 48 hours.
Yeah, it is a total violation of the human rights as guaranteed by our 1995 constitution. But like I said, this regime now, at the stage we are in, especially when people are showing solidarity from different areas of the world, including the East African communities, even when the law allows them free movement. But it is very unfortunate that we cannot even safeguard, uphold, and protect the simple tools that we have under our constitutions as fundamental human rights that are non-derogable, for example, right to a fair hearing. The constitution means it has been overthrown completely, especially in that line of the fundamental human rights, including according a fair trial to any person you believe that they have committed an offense. And our call is that we are only questioning the legality of their detention. If the government feels that these two individuals actually committed any offense, let them arraign them in court, let them formalize the trial, and then they can be remanded or the trial can commence. But minus that, even when the application for habeas corpus should have been heard and determined in 48 hours. You see, it was filed on the 6th and scheduled for 14th. That's a total confusion that is happening, and you are right to say that they have overthrown the constitution, but we are only having it under the written laws, but we shall keep to fight harder and harder until we regain its power, and so that we can be ruled under the law and the provisions of the constitution.
All right. Thank you for your insights. That is Kato Tumusime, who is a human rights lawyer. He is one of the lawyers involved in the Bob Njagi and Nicholas Oyoo habeas corpus application. We also thank you, Tito Magoti, who is an international human rights lawyer as well. We will continue to engage you gentlemen as we move closer to the Tanzanian elections and as we seek to have to know for sure where those Kenyan citizens are. We take a break, but Citizen Weekend continues on the other side.